General Obi-Wan Kenobi is far more powerful than many people realize. Greetings Acolytes, and welcome back to the archives. Of the Jedi Masters that make their staple in the Order, there are few who can match the reputation and accomplishments of Master Kenobi, who continues to accomplish even after the Clone Wars were brought to an end. Despite the fact that Obi-Wan had a relatively low midichlorian count in comparison to the average Jedi, he worked hard every single day of his life and achieved a connection to the Force that was much deeper than any others. One that he forged not through natural potential, but through determination and perseverance. This is why he was given a seat on the Jedi Council, as not only was he an excellent warrior and negotiator, but a man who truly had a grasp of the ways of the light side, how it operated, and everything that the Jedi strived to represent. Obi-Wan was the Jedi, and yet, because he is usually surrounded by much more powerful beings, many assume that Obi-Wan falls short. Yes, we do see him getting thrown around quite a bit during his duels, and sustaining some pretty bad beatings at the hands of his enemies, especially Dooku. And yet, none of this damages the fact that Obi-Wan is one of the most powerful members of the Jedi Order, even if he is too humble to admit it. So today, we will explain exactly why Obi-Wan grew to be so powerful, and pay our respects to the Jedi Master. Like we said earlier, though it seems as though Obi-Wan is usually on the receiving end of thrashings from his foes, and constantly having Anakin save him, there is an explanation for this that many seem to overlook. Obi-Wan finds himself in many situations where he is very clearly over his head. Being the Master of the Jedi Chosen One would have that effect. Any lesser Jedi would have died if they had gone through almost any of the things that Obi-Wan has had to deal with. This is the man that survived engagements with the most dangerous men in the galaxy from this era, and even came out victorious in many cases, being such as Darth Maul, an assassin specifically trained by Sidious himself, Dooku, the master of his master, who was considered to be the finest duelist of the age, second only to Grandmaster Yoda, Grievous, the professional Jedi Slayer that Obi-Wan made a habit of humiliating, Jango Fett, Cad Bane, Dirge, all three of these men considered to be the deadliest bounty hunters in the galaxy, and who are known for their Jedi kills. And of course, we have Darth Vader, the Dark Chosen One, and the most prolific Jedi killer that has ever lived, who Obi-Wan defeated at the height of his power, and then again in canon after he attained his cybernetics. My friends, these are not just any foes. Everyone we just mentioned are all in margins all of their own. Each one, maybe save for the bounty hunters, have even killed members of the Jedi Council, many of which far more powerful than Master Obi-Wan. But of course, it's not always just about one's combat ability. For this holocron, we aren't going to focus so much on Obi-Wan's feats and powers, but rather, we wanted to talk specifically about his deep connection to the Force and his relationship to it, and why this essentially gives Obi-Wan a trump card. For this, we can journey into the pages of the novelization for Revenge of the Sith, where here, it gives us insight into how Obi-Wan actually operates and exists within the Force itself. We get the full duel on the Invisible Hand, all from Dooku's perspective the moment that he enters the room. In this moment, when Dooku sinks himself into the Force and begins to perceive Anakin, Obi-Wan, as well as Palpatine, Dooku has this to comment when he senses Obi-Wan. Kenobi was a luminous, a transparent being, a window onto a sunlit meadow of the Force. Ponder these words for a moment, and you too will understand that it is truly the way of the Jedi. Obi-Wan is one of the greatest Jedi that has ever lived because of his relationship to the Force. Everyone has a different presence in the Force, but the fact that Obi-Wan is luminous, a transparent being, shows his dedication and understanding of the Jedi way and the light side. Perhaps the only other person that can come close to having this description would be Yoda, but it's only when Anakin and Obi-Wan are taken to meet Grievous do we really get an understanding of how in tune with the Force Obi-Wan really is. The novel says this: he doesn't even need to reach into the Force. He has already let the Force reach into him. The Force flows over him and around him as though he has stepped into a crystal pure waterfall, lost in the green coils of a forgotten rainforest. When he opens himself to the sparkling stream, it flows through Obi-Wan and through him and out again without the slightest interference from his conscious will. The part of him that calls itself Obi-Wan Kenobi is more than just a ripple, an eddy in the pool into which he endlessly pours. There are other parts of him here as well. There is nothing here that is not a part of him, from the scuff marks on R2-D2's dome, to the tattered hem of Palpatine's robe, from the spidering crack in one transparisteel panel of the curving view wall above the great starships that still battle beyond it, because this is all a part of the Force. He is both of the lightsabers that the other droid bodyguard marches forward to offer to General Grievous, and he is the General himself. He is the General's duranium ribs. He is the beating of Grievous's alien heart, and is the silent pulse of oxygen pumped through his alien veins. He is even the plan of his own execution simmering within the General's brain. He is all of these things, but most importantly, he is still Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is poetic and all, but what does this actually mean? This is the description of Obi-Wan effortlessly sinking into the Force. This is what it feels like. Obi-Wan's identity becoming the Force, and this is what it truly means when a Jedi is told to center themselves. As Yoda said, the Force flows through all around you. The tree, the rock, even between land and ship. Everything in the Force. So when one sinks into it, they become everything. His hyper-awareness and Jedi senses are the star of the sequence. The intuition of a Jedi is something that is very often understated. The kind of perception that the Jedi possess is borderline omnipotence whenever they reach this level of clarity. At this point, there is no time to Obi-Wan. There is no past or future. There is only now. There is only the Force. There is no battle, only the motion and the last motion. There is no emotion. There is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. The tenets of the Jedi Code come into full view whenever we finally understand what it looks like from a Jedi's point of view when they heighten their senses. Let's continue reading on in the book. The electro drivers that powered Grievous's limbs could move them faster than the human eye can see. When he swung his arm, the lightsaber within it would literally vanish, wiped from existence by sheer, mind-numbing speed, an imitation quantum event. No human being could move remotely as fast as Grievous, not even Obi-Wan, but he didn't have to. In the Force, parts of him was General Grievous's intent to slaughter, and the surge from intent to action translated to Obi-Wan's response without a thought. He had no need for a plan, no use for tactics. Obi-Wan had the Force. That sparkling waterfall coursed through him, washing away any thought of danger, or safety, or winning, or losing. The Force, like water, takes on the shape of its container without effort, without thought. The water that was Obi-Wan poured itself into the container that was Grievous's attack, and while some materials might be watertight, Obi-Wan had yet to encounter any that were entirely, as it were, Force-tight. In the span of a moment, maybe even half that time, Obi-Wan ripped his lightsaber free from the General's hand, and freed himself from the shackles right as R2 made the distraction. The novel insinuates Obi-Wan is actually connected to R2 in the Force and allowing this to happen. The battle then ensues, with the opening strikes and movements taking literally less than maybe a second and a half. I think the novel here shows us what the secret to Force speed is. Exactly what Obi-Wan has demonstrated. It's not so much bestowing oneself super speed, it's far more simple. Sinking deeply into the Force, so much that the Force itself moves, becomes your body, and allows you to move at the speed in which the Force itself would travel. And this was Obi-Wan Kenobi. Not only in this moment, but when he would duel Anakin, and later Vader, and General Grievous on Utapau. It's shocking that even movement is described in this matter. What simply looks like a distraction and a maneuver to retrieve Obi-Wan's weapon was a demonstration of one of the most advanced connections to the Force that Obi-Wan performed on instinct. Obi-Wan could let go of life or death, even victory and defeat, and had simply been one with the Force. This is a result of his years of training and dedication to the light side that we often don't get to see. It makes it so much more apparent now how he was able to survive his duel on Mustafar against a fully unleashed fury of Darth Vader. It would be for this reason that Obi-Wan became the master of Sarisu to the point where he could walk through a battlefield swarming with blaster bolts without ever having one of them touch him. But now, my friends, we would love to hear your take on this amazing description of Obi-Wan's connection to the Force and how it made him this powerful. Does this all make much better sense? And does the novelization come out and clearly explain why Obi-Wan can defeat those so much more naturally powerful? As always, my friends, thank you for stopping by the archives today, and as always, may the Force be with you.